Another question I've been asked is, how do you reconcile working with Jesus and Lucifer when they seem to represent opposite things? And that's an understandable question. And I love the way it was asked because then I can answer it. I hate when people speak to me in an accusatory tone about Christ, like I give a fuck about their personal preferences and assertions about what my life is supposed to be like. Because in real life, I don't think most people would have really spent time with Jesus in the first place because he was out in the streets hanging with people, not sitting around being holier than thou. He was living a certain way that inspired people to improve, not speaking sideways at them unless it was necessary. And 9 times out of 10, your words ain't necessary because I know what I stand on. So, how do I reconcile working with Jesus and Lucifer when they seem to represent opposite things? Easy. It's about duality. Jesus embodies compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love, in my opinion. Lucifer represents strength, autonomy, facing one's shadow, and dealing with the realistic side of the dark side of people. Both are powerful guides for transformation and bring balance to practice. Um, I worked with Lucifer and Poetic Spirits for, man, it's been several years, not necessarily 10 years yet, but quite a few years. And when I entered my relationship of getting to know Lucifer and the infernal realm, it was from a place of having to develop myself into a stronger person. At the time, I struggled with my boundaries. I struggled with being nice instead of being kind. I struggled with a lot of trauma that played out in me being unpredictable, uh, dysregulated, socially awkward, and unaware of how to read the room at times. It would make me conscious and aware and highly sensitive of when people didn't like me, but because of business or uh, professional reasons, or even, to develop a presence on social media, I might interact with them or deal with them or play off the nasty tenseness between them because they were nasty nice as long as they could get something out of me, whether I was one of their clients for one of their bullshit programs or, they were faking a friendship to see what they could milk of me and what kind of energy they could get from me. And I also suffered in personal friendships and family relationships as well because I wasn't bringing my best self to the table. And accountability and self-awareness are very important when you step into this part of the path because you have to be aware that certain things are not happening, not because you're not capable, but because you're not ready. Your heart might not be in the right place. Your integrity might need a little bit of strengthening. Your boundaries will always need some kind of strengthening in the beginning, especially if you can relate to everything I'm saying. And when you're working with Jesus and he's telling you to turn the other cheek, that's nice. But what if you've been mad for weeks on end and can't focus because you turned the other cheek, but now you're brewing inside? Sometimes you have to address things head on. Everything is not meant for you to just forgive and forget. You forgive and forget after you address what needs to be addressed. And a lot of times, the emotional upheaval that occurs in life comes from a personal lesson that we were ignoring that no longer can be ignored. Working with Lucifer will require you to go through those lessons sometimes, not because life's about trials and tribulations, which is what my mother would constantly say when I say, life shouldn't have all of this, crap going on. But because, you know, people can't, it's like having a dog that poops on the carpet. Sometimes you got to smush the dog's face in the poop to let them know this is not where it goes. And sometimes people have to have consequences for their actions. If you're at the point where you're like, listen, my energy is not right and I need my frequency balanced. I need to shift how I'm feeling about this. I need to change how I'm approaching this. Lucifer can help you with that head on. Jesus can too. Don't get me wrong. Jesus is great for really helping you clean up the pieces and release the weight of what's no longer serving you when you're too tired to deal with it. If you're dealing with somebody who has traumatized you and you've been angry for months and for years and for years and for months, and one day you are tired of processing them, you are tired of doing the shadow work, you are tired of healing from them, that's when you go right back to laying it on the cross. You give it to Jesus, you give it to the Most High, and you work on spiritually cleansing and having that compassion and that forgiveness and that release. Because sometimes it takes a little salt and sometimes it takes a little sugar. And sometimes you might need to put in a little extra elbow grease energetically and spiritually to clean a person out. But if you scour out a person by going through the shadow and clearing them first, and then going to the light and clearing out the rest, especially if you already went to the light and it worked a little bit, then you went to the shadow, it dug up a lot, and then the last few remnants are back to the light, you're transmuting that energy and moving forward. And let me be clear. This is not about hexing someone. That's not what I'm talking about. This is not even about doing a spell with someone. But if you can connect to the frequency of Jesus, you can also connect to the frequency of Lucifer and connect to the frequency of the infernal and connect to that dark side of you that is demanding to be explored before you let go of the person, place, or thing that pissed you off so badly that you were here. So I reconcile working with Jesus and Lucifer because all roads lead to the same outcome if you're on the right path. And if you're on the right path to your best, highest evolution of self or whatever you're meant to do here in this divine life that you have, all of the instruments along the way will assist you with that. I also want to say this. The spirit world is a reflection of your world, just like everyone is you pushed out, which, again, you need to be realistic with that. Everyone might be you pushed out, but that doesn't mean everything that they do reflects everything coming from you. You have to be a little more discerning with whether they're pushed out and reflecting you so that you can see where your boundaries are, or they're reflecting what you believe so you can see whether or not you need to change your beliefs about them or about yourself. And usually the beliefs about yourself are the ones that need to be looked at. Sorry for the tangent, but where this lies in reconciling working with Jesus and Lucifer is if you have a negative perception of demons, if you have an indoctrinated perspective of demons, if you have a very strict perspective of demons and you've had experiences where beings that you've seen or labeled as demons have created negative and traumatic experiences for you, you're not going to agree with my perspective, and that's okay. Everybody hasn't had the same experience, and I came from a background where I thought I knew everything because it was in the good book. And out of everybody in my family, I went through a lot of stuff that the outside world has validated, but that my family will pretend to know nothing about, even when I tell them what goes on and give them the circumstances. And it's cool, it's fine. I've met more than enough people who understand that there's more to this world than what we've been biblically indoctrinated and controlled to think. You definitely have to think for yourself. So, people who tend to have negative attitudes toward dark beings or demonic beings or goetic beings or infernal beings or non-Christian entities, they tend to have such a negative perception and thought that the only way such a spirit can show up most of the time is according to the way they see it. They would never receive that spirit in any other format or fashion. Now, if you have an open mind or you're willing to be open or you're meant to work with these types of spirits, guess what? They're not going to come at you in a scary way. They're not going to intrude upon you in any way. They will introduce themselves. They will make themselves known, and you will be communicated to in ways that make it comfortable for you to communicate with them, and they'll be patient. It took me a long time to even use the word Lucifer, even interact with Lucifer directly, because I would work with all of these other goetic spirits and avoid the hell out of Lucifer because I couldn't understand it myself. And then as I started to dive in and I started to get comfortable and I started to connect, I started to understand there was nothing for me to be afraid of. Now, with that being said, am I telling you to run out and go connect to Lucifer? No, if you're hesitant, I would tell you to stick where you are and stay where you're comfortable. But thank you for listening.